seeing that they value that and it's valued enough to be in our block schedule is pretty incredible, and really does make us unique, that we have that ability to do that here at St. Katherine.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SMA Audio Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and we have a fantastic episode in store for you. Last year, on the last couple episodes, we had a theme of teachers are rock stars, and we're trying to, showcase that for teachers and staff on St. Michael Academy campus. But one of the things that we wanted to do, because we can't just do it alone, and we know that there are many, many fantastic teachers who are rock stars at other Catholic schools, especially here in San Diego County, is we wanted to invite, some of those teachers and leaders and principals, onto the show to share all the amazing stuff that they're doing as well. So we're really graced with the presence with this fantastic guest. If you haven't, caught up with her, she stays consistent with, professional development, showcasing what her, students are doing, on our campus. They're also, one of the members of our 4-school, cohort as far as becoming a next generation school. So that's none other than Mrs. Nicole Rogers. Mrs. Rogers, were you able to make the call?
Thank you so much for the introduction. That was very sweet. Well, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out. And, just to give everybody who's listening, our audience, thank you to all the new listeners and existing listeners. She's super dedicated, where she didn't even want to reschedule this recording. They're going through a major power outage in the general area. So, big kudos to you. And, for all of those who haven't met you yet, for all the parents in your community, alumni from, your school, can you share a little bit about yourself and what you teach, and, so they know who you are?
Yeah, thanks. It's the joy of technology. But we can still do this podcast, so let's use technology where we can. My name's Nicole Rogers. I work at St. Katherine Drexel Academy. It is the former Blessed Sacrament and Our Lady of Sacred Heart School. I am a child of the system. I went to Catholic school my entire life, kindergarten all the way to Marian. That ages me to where I went. I went to Blessed Sacrament. I graduated from Blessed Sacrament, which is where our campus is located now in the college area. I have been teaching at St. Katherine for the last 2 years. I started last year with the opening of the school. I was formerly at Blessed Sacrament. I am currently the science and math lower school teacher and the STEM lead. So that is my description.
Awesome. Well, we know that, careers and, there's a big thing out there that, your job or your path or the skills that you have just don't define you as an individual. You're definitely a leader, for your school and your community, and, the parents and the students who, come under your tutelage and your supervision and everything like that. So one of the key things that we brought up when we're kind of discussing, what great value you're going to share with was on the topic of, STEM related items and, some of the unique stuff that you have going on at your school that you're, seeing a lot of value in, and it has been a great journey and still ongoing, and I'd love for you to go ahead and share that with the audience so that, later on you might have some current families who, there's a lot of families where both parents work, right? Or if it's a single family household, they don't always get that one-on-one time, with you or maybe one of the teachers in your school. So I'd really love for this, for the first part of the episode, to really look at it from a parent point of view, to kind of share some of the great stuff that you're doing that may shed some light or a different lens to those, parents where their current students are attending St. Katherine Drexel Academy, on the stuff that you do.
Okay, perfect. Well, as a part of the 4-school cohort for Next Generation, one of the things that I was tasked last year with our, as we began this journey to become a next generation Catholic school that's will be certified in blended learning through LMU was to start a STEM program, which is separate from our science program, really focusing on coding and having a maker space and what I call a STEM challenge. So last year I started this program with first, second, third, and fourth grade to test it out. And this year we have been able to expand upon it. And we are going to be adding robotics to that as well. So that is our new thing that we are doing. So every week at St Katherine Drexel, we have a hour-long class on Mondays. And I have awesome teachers that help me with this. And we divide the students either in buddy classes, which is awesome, or they stay in their grade appropriate. So usually we have like first and second, third and fourth grade together, and they rotate through the different STEM activities. So that includes coding, which we use code.org, which is amazing. And they're connected with our robotics. So we are starting that this year. We're slowly integrating that as that's a pretty big deal, but the fact that we have kindergartners all the way to eighth graders learning how to code and use robotics is pretty amazing this year. They rotate through coding and STEM challenge, which happens to be my personal favorite. For example, right now our 7th and 8th grade is tasked with creating a new toy that they would like to quote unquote sell for the Christmas season, for Black Friday. So they're tasked with creating a different toy, something new. So they're researching right now what's the new trends, what are kids into, and how they can improve upon a toy that possibly already exists, or creating their own to demonstrate their learning and go through the engineering process of creating a new product. So that's really neat. And our makerspace is a joy for all the way up kindergarten through our 8th graders. That is, I think, their personal favorite because it really lends itself to their creative ability. And we very much give them an open space for them to explore on their own. They do use the engineering process and have to design what they want, but they have so many different materials that they could use. I have a recycling pile, which is amazing. That's everything from paper towel rolls to boxes from Amazon. Parents bring me all sorts of things. It's amazing. We have bottle caps, everything. It's so cool what they can make with just a couple of recycling items, and all the way to our stuff that we have in the classroom. We do have Legos and all sorts of different things. So that's the less guided version that they get to experience. But all in all, that's pretty much what STEM hour is. And they look forward to it every week. Actually, we're kind of bummed. I had a couple students come up to me today because it's Tuesday, because we didn't have a holiday yesterday, that they missed STEAM hour. And they were hoping that I would make it up today, but we weren't able to do that, unfortunately. So, but it's been a blast. So
that's awesome.
And part of it is technology, and with the power outage, we can't do that one. So doesn't really work for today, but everything else would. But yeah, so that's STEM hour, and all the kids get it. TK all the way to 8th grade, which is amazing. And watching the first, second, and third grade from last school year who have already experienced this and really teaching the 8th graders how to code is awesome. It really boosts their confidence because they know all about this stuff, and to be able to be the leaders for the bigger kids is pretty cool.
That is cool. I think that's the one thing, and I think in conversations that gets what you just said gets easily overlooked, is where in the changing market, right? And I'm covering for whether you own a business or you're going to be operating within a business, no matter what your age is you take that, obviously there's always something to be said about experience, right? But you take the age part out of the picture in that pure example where you have someone who's chronologically younger, but then they have the experience to someone, their typical elder, and
Yeah.
they're able to, in their language and their experiences, convey something to someone maybe who has a more diverse vocabulary, experiences, mathematical backgrounds, all that normal academic stuff. But they get to tell it in their language. But right there, that's a little microcosm of, a regular workplace where you have a
Yeah.
whole mix of things, right? So
Yeah.
that is super awesome. Like, what have been, obviously, the students, like the lower grades and the higher grades will have the stories. Have there been, some really cool stories that have kind of grown out of that, especially out of that buddy system where sometimes you might have a mixing of the older grades and lower grades, for some of these projects?
Most definitely. With the younger grades, I really see the creativity has not been lost. It is the joy of being a younger student, and especially with doing a STEM project and during that buddy time and having that challenge, and the 6th and 7th graders working with they usually work with our 1st and 2nd graders, and the 1st and 2nd graders being able to have the confidence to look at a challenge in a different way that a 6th and 7th grader wouldn't necessarily have. It really is amazing to see them stepping up and thinking outside of the box and really getting the upper grades to think outside the box too. So it is pretty spectacular to watch.
Very cool. And the other thing that I can see growing from it, where it may not be directly evident, but like you mentioned earlier, in your response, there's the different projects that are ongoing. There's research that has to happen. So that means there's communication, verbal, in person, maybe video if they're doing a video chat with someone, and of course the good old classic writing, right? So being able to convey, the stuff that you find or share that, all the, the grammar and writing composition of communication, that's still there while they're doing this entire process. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. They have an engineering process. It's a blank canvas basically with prompts. So it's universally known. They are using it from TK all the way to 8th grade, really thinking about their learning and going through the process properly, because that is the hardest. The challenge is thinking about what you would like, and because as I love Dr. Creedy from LMU, she always says, which is correct, you do it once, it's an art project. You do it twice, that's an engineering design process. So thinking about it, going through it, writing down, labeling, then going through your problems, what happened, how can I fix this, and writing it down and keeping this. And these projects are month long for most parts. So it is a process, and it's hitting all academic levels, and it's boosting a lot of confidence with some of our students that struggle. They're able to show their strengths through our STEM projects, but also having those buddies there and being able to write it down, and especially when the younger kids are with the older kids and they can't quite spell it right, being able to ask a friend that could help them is great. So it definitely is all around very academic, and I appreciate that they're hitting all those standards and getting a lot of practice with their writing skills as well.
Awesome. And so here's a cool point. I want to go ahead and, do a little lane change here, right? So now we kind of talked about the students and some of the things, to give a little more insight to, your school as a whole, to parents who might be wondering, hey, like, what are some of the activities? So we went a little into the details there. Now I got a 2-part question here. This is for your fellow teachers, right? And I'm going to look at it from the point of view of young, new, up and coming teachers and teachers who have a lot more experience. So my two-part question would be if a teacher, if teachers are listening. So say if here's the first part. Say if you have a new teacher, they've been teaching maybe for a year or two in, math or science, and they're interested in getting or becoming, getting ready to, or trying to aspire to be like a STEM lead, similar to where you are for representing your school. What are some of the things that you can share along with them of the journey, like when you're first, when it was first proposed to you, some of the things that, you found, pretty difficult, or that you didn't have any experience on. And if you can share some, words of wisdom, or some things that you had some, preconceived notions on, but then you realized after going through like the initial process, you're like, oh, well, it's different than what I thought. And then the second question would be for the experienced teachers, where they may get asked by their leadership to take on that type of role. And maybe they've never done anything like that before. If you can kind of, walk them through the journey from either your experiences or in your networking, in your personal learning network, of what you've heard from other, veteran teachers, on this topic.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, I could tell you right off the bat which one it is, and it's coding. As a daughter of a engineer, computer programmer, you think I wouldn't be terrified of coding, but that was the one that I was really kind of terrified about. I thought, I have never done this. This is a whole different language. How am I supposed to teach this? But as you said, my professional learning, I am a big podcaster. I am very much into networking with a lot of teachers. Thank God for social media, and our teaching bubble that we could live in has expanded all across the world. It truly is amazing. So with coding, I was able to go through a local San Diego teacher group, and somebody happened to mention that there was a class for coding 101, and it was coming up in a couple weekends, and I went to that, and it's amazing. I was able to pick it up, and the greatest thing that the instructor said was, your students are probably going to go faster than you, but that's okay. And showing that you're a human being as well, and going through the process and learning with them is amazing too. And you could really grow. That shows your growth mindset. And even as an adult, you're willing to learn basically a whole different language. And so I've definitely grown in my comfort level with coding, and it's been fantastic. So there are lots of classes that a couple of different programs that are free offer online for teachers in coding. And I love my coding bloggers. They're pretty steady and basic information, because that's where teachers are a little concerned about, is computer science. It's not something they teach you, but we truly need it for the future. As far as older teachers that are being asked to do this, it is a challenge with trying to get this in your day. As an experienced veteran teacher, you have your schedule. We always try to mix it up as educators, but it is something. It's considered an extra, computer science. So adding that into your day could be a little scary. But within ELA, I use, I have one teacher for our lower school is using Scratch coding, which that is a program, and it allows you to make your own storyboard using coding. So integrating it into your classroom, it can take a little creativity, but it is 100% doable. There are lots of amazing resources out now, especially with teacher groups and bloggers. Just Pinterest is where I found my favorite STEM teacher. She's located in Oklahoma, and that's where I've really found just asking other teachers. That's something we just need to do a little more of, is keep asking. And don't worry if you mess up, it's okay.
That's
if it
a good
bombs,
lesson,
it's
right?
okay.
It's okay, right? Like
Yeah, we're all humans.
it will still be there. Like nothing is gonna fall or like shut down or anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
One of our grad profile is we're lifelong learners, and I led with that, teaching the students, we're lifelong learners too. We have to try and fall down a little bit, and then we stumble and we figure it out, and that's part of it, So
very true.
Definitely.
So here's a key question. So then for those who are really analytical, right, on some of those teachers, they like there's some teachers they really like the details, right? So for example, what would you say in the first, like when you were first starting out, how many extra hours on top of the normal being a teacher work that you have for the school day? And I know there's all that prep stuff before or after, because you might give extra like what is that, like tutoring or extra help for those families or students who've asked for that, or hey, the school has a lot of events, they may ask a lot of you outside of the normal classroom hours. Like, what would you say would be so that people don't get overwhelmed, right? Because we know there's a lot of information, but if someone is like new, like what would be, should they block out like maybe 10 or 15 minutes or 30 minutes? Like what would be a nice tangible start for someone to start looking? Because maybe I'm a teacher, but I don't do any of this social media stuff or any of this networking or whatever, even though it's out there. What would be like some good starting points for them, so they can build consistency?
Starting points would be basic free coding apps. So there are lots of free apps. And that's what I kind of did. That was one of my first searches, was free coding apps or free coding classes. And from there, it just a couple minutes a day looking into it. I was able to find teachers that were already teaching it. About 10-15 minutes would be about the normal. Really finding a class to go to, even online classes to go to, would be helpful to
get started.
Get started. Yeah. So
awesome. Okay.
It was about a 6-hour class. One of the main searches that I did was coding, basic coding. And then I went through that search. I found the Hour of Code,
right,
which is code.org.
Yep.
And that's where I really saw all the classes that are available for educators, because they have the educator side of their website.
That's right.
And because it's free, Catholic school teachers, free is for me.
Yes.
That's where
we feel
that's
you.
where I was able to really start. So going to that class, or just like looking around 10-15 minutes, I was able to figure it out. And I was able to grow in my search. So that's what I would say. But don't overwhelm yourself, because the internet, you could just get lost and lost and lost. And so just tapping it right there, get some great resources, especially if you keep seeing them over and over again. That's what I noticed, that everybody kept leading me back to the same sources. It's like, okay, I really got to check this out.
There you go. So, that's cool. Yeah. No, that's super, super awesome. Oh man. Okay. That's what's cool, because I really think, having more schools and, like overall, with all the stuff that you've done, because, we see your Twitter feed, and you're really consistent on that. Can you share a little bit like what your colleagues, like your principal or your parish leader, all the leadership, with the Diocese of San Diego, like what type of feedback have you received from there, from those parties?
We are a diocesan school because we serve 3 parishes. We're a very unique school because of our blending. We serve Our Lady of Sacred Heart in City Heights. We serve Holy Spirit at in Oak Park, and then we have Blessed Sacrament at El Cerrito. So we definitely have a wide range. So our leadership absolutely love. Last year, my principal was definitely asking me, is STEM hour today? I have a tour. It just, the joy and seeing the students really learning in depth what I'm doing was something that she just loved to do. She would always walk in to see, because the joy of learning was amazing to see. It's infectious. So she would always ask me when the next STEM hour is and what room are you going to be in today, because I want to see. So I've gotten fantastic feedback from principal, and the other teachers really have caught on to this, because it seems a little daunting and overwhelming, but the feedback is how fun it is. And that really is. They're learning and they're having a fantastic time. So that's a win-win as a teacher. So that's the feedback I've pretty much gotten. And the joy is so infectious in their learning.
That's very
through
cool.
STEM.
I mean, I bring that up. I asked that question because now we're always trying to add a lot of value to, because there's so many podcasts and so many things out there, right? Is now the reason why I asked that question is because from an administrative or a leadership point of view, maybe, at obviously Catholic school is a little different from a district level, because that might be considered if you're like a parish driven school or a diocesan school, right? But what is that? It's knowing or seeing what is ongoing, because let's be honest, right? Like you're trying to, I always see it in two parts. It's you're reselling or giving proper vision to the existing students. The number one customers right there, the existing students and families who are there, but also showing that vision to those families who come across, because maybe they're new to the area. Maybe they're moving from public school or, a previous homeschooling or, just some other schooling arrangement. Or, for whatever reason, you have to kind of cater to both, and seeing what you guys are doing, consistently, on your website or on the social media for the school or their individual teachers. When they do those tours, I think number one is the learning and, what the students are getting out of it, but being able to easily showcase that, because authentically that's who you guys are and that's what you guys are doing. I think that's such a key point, right? Just to keep that, that annual, being able to fill the seats and show what value you're bringing. I think that's just a game changer for what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I absolutely love that our administration has really thought that the STEM hour should be incorporated in our day, not just as an event that happens a couple times a year. I seeing that they value that and it's valued enough to be in our block schedule is pretty incredible, and really does make us unique, that we have that ability to do that here at St. Katherine.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I definitely want to, be respectful of your time. This is the part of the episode where we always want to give the floor to the guest. So if there's, anything you want to give a shout out to, any events that you're promoting or anything that you're really excited about, or even asking the audience for their help, maybe polling like a survey question or something that you're working on, I definitely want to, give the floor over to you on that.
This month has been very busy for us at St. Katherine. We had our STEM night for our families, which was amazing. We had a fantastic turnout in conjunction with our Loyola Marymount instructors, and our families had a blast. It was a great opportunity for our families to experience what the students do in the classroom on a regular basis. So it was neat for our students. We had student leaders, and they were the ones probing the questions for their parents, as that's a part of St. Katherine Drexel, is that we are also a leadership academy. So seeing them taking the leadership role was pretty amazing. We also had a wonderful kindergarten orientation night, our first one for the year, which was great because we're a new school in a blended school and coming together as a new school our second year. We're really starting to be recognized in the community. There's this neat school sitting here in the corner of 56th Street, and it's serving all of these wonderful communities of Our Lady of Sacred Heart and Blessed Sacrament and Holy Spirit. It's a very unique situation, but it's awesome to be able to serve all three communities. And we're having our jogathon this week, so wish us luck on Friday. We're almost there with our goals. So yeah, a lot of going on at St Katherine Drexel.
Awesome. Most definitely. How can the parents or communities who are interested in what you have to say, how can they reach out to you, in social or email? What's the best way to get a hold of Mrs. Nicole Rogers?
We are all over social media. That is another aspect of my job. But mainly just visit our website, www.skda-sd.org.
Awesome. And, I want to take a moment to thank you, for coming on here. I know it takes a lot of courage. And usually a lot of teachers are used to being in the classroom, kind of sharing and leading the class in that way. And this way the tables are a little turned because, someone's asking you the questions, but because of the training and the curriculum and what you guys are implementing with your STEM education and the whole blended learning over at St Katherine Drexel, it's almost like you're practicing what you're preaching to the students. You know what I mean? So you're actually, taking the questions and, sharing a little bit about it. And we're having a great conversation here, but it's truly an example of what's ongoing at all those different levels of what's happening. That's super amazing over at your school. So I wanted to thank you so much for everything that you do for your school and your community. You're doing an amazing, amazing job.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Everybody, that concludes another episode of the SMA Audio Experience Podcast. For all our new listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, in iTunes or whatever podcast directory that you're listening to us on, or on, the respective websites. If you're an existing listener, we thank you so much for your ears, because we know that with so many things pulling at your attention, listening to us and finding value in this is a gift and a privilege for us to provide this to you. With that being said, everyone have a great rest of the week. Don't forget, just strengthen your faith. Use all the resources. We'll post everything in the show notes. And most importantly, God bless.